one of the great things about the Hudson is that we've developed a sense of community among the people who fish the Hudson, either recreationally or commercially. I mean, there's not much commercial activity anymore. But we really have established, I'd have to say, I think the estuary program was a key factor in creating an environment where people could come together and understand each other's perspectives and understand how the science was affecting the policy and that interaction, and to get together informally and just get to know each other as human beings. So that really, I think, is a huge factor.
What's nice about having the different biological monitoring programs is because it's spanning the river, we can look at that to see, has there been changes, shifts in distribution? And I think that's really more important as we're seeing climate change effects, that we may start seeing more shifts in the distribution. And I think that data will be more and more important through time.
It's certainly one of the longest running. There are others that are certainly in that same kind of time frame. Studies at Millstone, as far as power plant studies, anyhow, I'm aware of. Seabrook has a long-term study down at Salem plant in New Jersey, and I think there's probably some on the West Coast that are also fairly long-term. I'm not aware of any that studied the spatial extent or the intensity of the sampling. I think it makes it kind of unique.
The consistent, the year-to-year consistency of sampling and the large, rather large gear that was used. I don't know if you've ever seen the gear they used, but it was big. Really made the collections more uniform than one could imagine.
There were a lot of power plants located on the Hudson. I think maybe most of them have aged out by now, I'm not sure, and new ones have been installed. But at the time, the economically profitable ones used open cycle cooling, which means that you draw in water to cool the boilers and you discharge it as heated water. And this was, and I can tell you, I've been in the outflow of some of them just accidentally when I was beach sanding, and pretty hot. You know, there's an area that's hot. In the wintertime, it really attracts fish, but in the summer it can cook them. And if the fish are drawn in, then they're going to cook, and that doesn't help the system at all. The larger fish were blocked off by screens that were called impingement screens, and well, I think they were just called screens, probably cleaning racks or something. But they also became kind of a big target of the inquiry because they did kill a lot of fish. The fish that got stuck on those screens just died basically because of the intake flow was so high.
You know, what is the river anyway? To a lot of people, I mean, I'm in a boatyard here, and only a fraction of the people here fish. And so when these people go out and on the weekends in the summer, their main concern is whether the water's good enough to swim.
What was called the Indian Point case had been going on for several years already. In fact, controversy over impacts of power generation on striped bass had been going on for more than 10 years already. The first systematic data collection started in the early 70s as a result of the licensing activities of the then Nuclear Atomic Energy Commission, having to look at impacts of the now new Indian Point plant on fish species in the Hudson River, especially striped bass. And they directed Consolidated Edison, who was the owner of the plant, to establish a monitoring program to start collecting data, which they did. And it just sort of grew over the years. And at the time, the main question was effects of entrainment of striped bass larvae. through the Cornwall Pump Storage Facility, which had been proposed and basically licensed, and the new Indian Point plant, which Unit 1 had been operating since the mid-60s, and Unit 2 was under construction and had to be licensed by the NRC.
We have an enormous respect for each other. I have enormous respect for the DEC and them making us prove that we were not a bad actor. And every day we said, no one knows this, but all of the team, every day we would say, the scientists and we would say, if there is a problem, we're going to disclose this problem. We're going to take action to fix it. There was never a second where we were like, we could affect the species and not fix that. I would never have allowed that. They would never have allowed it. But that was, I turned down work to do large scale projects where they affected species all my life. I was never going to allow that to happen.
It's been a fascinating look at how the interests of citizens, the interests of agencies that are there to represent the interests of the citizens have interacted with commercial interests like the utilities, and how scientists can help. Maybe mediate is not quite the right word, but certainly provide data that ostensibly should be informing that policy. And it's not informing the policy, not in terms of saying what the policy ought to be, because that's not what scientists do, but offering information.